What is up, everybody? It is Saturday night. It is late Saturday night. Let's be honest, right? It's Sunday here where I live on the Eastern time zone. It's actually Sunday morning, and we just finished UFC 274. What an interesting freaking show that was. I mean, honestly, just you had an incredible knockout by Michael Chandler. One of the most impressive front kicks I've ever seen in a fight. It came out of nowhere like a bullet, and we're going to talk about that. And then you had, for a main card of a UFC event, honestly, two of the most boring fights I have ever seen, bar none. And what a shocking surprise that is, because when Carla Esparza and Rose Namajunas was announced, I was so excited for this fight because I remember watching that season of The Ultimate Fighter where the two of them at the end of it battled for the inaugural strawweight title. And I was excited for this rematch. I honestly was, because I thought Carla Esparza deserved this title shot, right? Like, I thought she did enough to deserve this title shot. And I was excited for that fight. The styles kind of lined up really well, right? Carla's a wrestler. She's coming in strong with a wrestling background. And Rose, just an incredible striker. One of the best female strikers, at least one of the most exciting female strikers I've ever seen. So what a disappointing fight that was. That might be. And I was thinking back as I was watching the fight, was that the most disappointing title fight in UFC history? I mean, a fight that had a lot of promise because you've got two different styles matching up pretty well. Can Carla get in and get the takedown? Can she close that distance between her and Rose? Or can Rose keep enough distance that she can use her length to her advantage to outstrike Carla and win that fight? And what we got was 5 rounds of just boring snooze fest. You had two fighters who were just feeling each other out the entire time. We'll talk more about it when we get there, because I want to go fight by fight and give my thoughts. Now, a little housekeeping before we begin. I want to welcome you to night 1 of what's going to be 3 live streams in a row. We're doing UFC 274 tonight. We're doing WrestleMania Backlash tomorrow. And then on Monday, we're going to circle back around and we're going to do Impact Wrestling's Under Siege event. So you got 3 live streams from me. So hopefully you enjoy that. And then, of course, we're going to be doing the podcast on Monday. So anyways, let's get started. And I mean, look, to be honest, this card was really, it was interesting even going into the night, because the weigh-ins with Oliveira getting stripped of the title because he couldn't make the weight. And there's a lot of controversy surrounding that. I mean, I'm interested to know what you think, and I'd say comment in the comments section, please. Is this fair? Is Oliveira losing the title fair? I mean, the dudes, I'm going to go ahead and share this here. I think this is a good, UFC.com is where we're going, and we're just going to use this to kind of run down the card. And then I'm going to give my thoughts. There we go. I'm going to give my thoughts on a fight-by-fight basis. But going into the event, there was just a lot of buzz because Oliveira was stripped of the title. So going into the event, you had all this buzz. Gaethje could win the title and become the undisputed champion. But if Oliveira won, he doesn't retain his title. He doesn't get to keep his title. And there's a lot of controversy around this. So even going into tonight, we had that controversy surrounding us. And then we also had Tony Ferguson, who honestly spent a lot of time bad-mouthing Dana White, bad-mouthing Michael Chandler. And he was shut up a little bit tonight. That is for sure. But anyways, listen, we started the night out. And I did not watch the undercard, full disclosure. Okay. It's Mother's Day weekend. I took my mom out to dinner. We had a nice dinner and I got home just in time to catch the main card. So I did not watch the undercard. Comment in the comment section below if there is a fight on the undercard that I need to go check out. I will probably watch it, but please let me know in the comments if there's a fight that I really should go out of the way to check out. So anyways, look, we started the night out with Randy Brown and Chaos Williams in the welterweight division. Now, this was supposed to be Donald Cerrone versus Lozow, and the fight was called off, and they said it was because of a non-COVID issue. I don't know what the hell that means. I didn't check any news sites to see why they called this fight off, but the fight got called off. So instead, Randy Brown and Chaos Williams in the welterweight division gets bumped up to the main card. Okay, and the first thing I noticed in this fight is that Brown was just long as shit, man. Just a tall freaking dude, long reach on that dude. The limbs, so freaking long. And so I knew that the story of this fight was going to be, can Brown keep Williams at distance? Because that's what he's going to have to do to win this fight, right? If Williams can successfully close the distance on Brown, he might be able to catch him and win the fight. So that was the story of the fight. The first round, in all honesty, Williams kind of dominated that first round. He caught him with a right, and he attempted a Darce choke. Brown got out of that, and then it was mostly kind of a feeling out round. I gave Williams that first round 10-9, but then the fight flipped in round 2, and Brown took control of the fight, honestly, because he was able to keep that distance, hit him with jabs, use those long limbs. And Williams started to, it kind of seemed a little bit like Williams was getting thrown off his game and was getting a little frustrated because Brown was slipping and moving, and he was able to kind of escape and keep Williams at a distance. Like I said, Williams tried to close the gap multiple times in round 2, but he just couldn't really take advantage. Every time he would close the gap, he just could not take advantage. So I gave Brown both rounds 2 and 3. There was a point in round 3, though, where Brown made a mistake, and I thought Williams was going to be able to capitalize on it. He did knock Brown down, but Brown got right back up and just caught Williams with a solid jab. The final round was tough. Honestly, it was tough to score, but Brown did end up getting the decision. It was a split decision win for Randy Brown. And, a lot of people, after watching the fight, you really could have given this fight to Chaos Williams. You really could have, because round 3 was just so hard to score. But in my opinion, the judges got it right. It was a split decision. Randy Brown won. And in all honesty, and I know they don't judge this way, but when you look at the fight as a whole, right, I do think it was pretty obvious that Randy Brown controlled the fight. I really do. He held most of that fight. So I think the right man won. It was a decent fight. It was just kind of, again, the storyline of that fight was you have this big, tall, lanky guy with a lot of reach, keeping the smaller guy at a distance. And that's what happened. The first snoozer of the night was the next fight. And that was Ovince St. Preux fighting Shogun Rua. And this freaking fight, this is light heavyweight division, by the way. Gosh, this fight sucked. I just thought this was a terrible fight. Between this and the Esparza Namajunas fight, this was kind of really a mixed bag pay-per-view, in all honesty. With OSP, it's kind of interesting, right? Because OSP certainly has the history of just not caring, not giving a shit, right? And you've seen it multiple times in his fights where he fights very lazy. Just kind of he stays back. Some fighters, when they hold back and they're not rushing in, right? It's a game plan. And you can tell that's kind of the game plan going in. When we get to the Namajunas Esparza fight, I want to try to figure out together Rose Namajunas' game plan, because I just don't know what the hell was going on there. But I think maybe that was kind of where it's, anyway, we'll get there. But right now we got to talk about OSP. So OSP is one of those fighters. When he turns it on, he turns it on. And he can put on a good show, and he can be really competitive when he's motivated to do so. But we've also seen the OSP where he's bored. He's fighting very lazy. He's just kind of in it. It doesn't even look like he really gives a shit if he wins or not. And I think that's the OSP we kind of got today. And when you put in an opponent like Shogun Rua, and this is no disrespect to Shogun, because he really is one of the greatest fighters of all time. If you were into Pride back in the day and you watched any Pride, you know what Shogun can do, right? But he's old. He's 40 years old. He's definitely not the same guy that he once was. And when they announced this fight, I was not excited about it at all. Just because of the styles and because Shogun's so old. And you know what? That's what we saw, right? Round one. I literally asked the question. The first thing on my notes, I just said it, but it was the first thing I wrote is, are we going to get lazy OSP? Which version are we going to get? And it was just a lot of kicks to start the fight. Super boring first round. OSP was just kind of sitting back. Hua was trying to close the gap a little bit, but OSP would hit him with these kicks that kept him away a little bit. I gave the first round to OSP 10-9, but it was a really boring round. The second round, I noted that the commentators at one point got so bored that they started talking about how good of English Shogun spoke. So they were just looking for things to talk about at this point, and they started going into this story. I think it was DC goes into the story about how Shogun Hua, man, he knows he knows English pretty well, surprisingly well. And I'm thinking, man, you got to be so bored. You're just trying to find things to talk about at this point. And so they started talking about this anecdote about Shogun Hua. But again, how could you not be so bored? The crowd started booing, and rightfully so. In all honesty, I gave Hua round two. But again, it was just so boring. Round three started slow again. Big boos by the end of this fight. The crowd, it just turned against these guys because they weren't doing anything. This was another instance where they just weren't doing anything. I like how when you look at UFC.com here, who had a measured and effective first round. Measured and effective. Is that a nice way to say this fight was boring as hell? Because it absolutely was. Now, it would be outdone, which is shocking to me, because as I'm watching this fight, I'm thinking, well, this is the worst fight on the card. It's not going to get worse than this. When you look at the fights that were ahead, you're thinking to yourself, okay, we're going to get action going forward from this point. Like, get through this fight, this boring fight, and we're going to get to some excitement. OSP did ended up winning. It was another split decision. Again, I understand that split decision because this honestly was a really tough fight to score. I mean, when you get a fight where just nothing happens, there's not a lot of action. How do you score it? And again, everything that I'm saying right now, we're going to revisit that here in about two fights. So, everything that you could say about this fight, you could say about the women's fight that took place later in the card. You expect that with these two. You do not expect that with Thug Rose and with Carla Esparza. You just don't. But how would I be the fight of the night? In my opinion, and really, you could again fight of the night on the main card because I did not watch the prelims. So if there was a better fight on the prelims, and I'm assuming there was, I didn't get to see it. I don't know why I'm assuming that. I just am. You could say that the Charles Oliveira and the Gaethje fight was fight of the night because it was pretty exciting. It was a pretty exciting fight for as long as it lasted. Same thing here. This was a very exciting fight for as long as it lasted. Michael Chandler and Tony Ferguson, lightweight division. Again, I started the stream off by talking about this, but this fight was really highlighted by some of the words that some of the conversation around Tony Ferguson. And Tony Ferguson has been really, really open about how he feels about Dana White, and in all honesty, how he feels about Michael Chandler. And he kind of went into dissing Chandler a little bit, saying Chandler didn't really deserve this opportunity. I noticed at the start of the fight, he did not touch gloves with Michael Chandler. I'm going to be honest, and I know this might offend some people. I don't really care. This is just how I feel. I think it's kind of bitch-made stuff, man. I honestly do. Like, I think Tony Ferguson, look, you could levy a lot of criticism at Dana White. You can levy a lot of criticism at the UFC and how they book fights and yada, yada, yada. And I think there's fair criticism there, right? And I think one of Tony Ferguson's talking points was health insurance or something like that. And the fighter's not really getting health insurance. And look, you know what? I'm not going to take a side on that. I actually do think the fighters should get health insurance. I think it's kind of asinine that they don't. In terms of like fighter pay, and there's a lot of debates about this stuff. I'm not going to get into that shit, man, because it's a business at the end of the day. You sign a contract, you know how much you're going to get paid per fight. I want to sympathize and I want to side with the fighters because they're putting their asses on the line for us, right? They're literally putting their health on the line for our entertainment. But it's a bigger conversation, and you can look at it from both sides. But in all honesty, Tony Ferguson running his mouth before this fight, and then bringing Michael Chandler into the shit, and trying to tie Michael Chandler with Dana White, as if somehow Dana White is like giving favoritism to Michael Chandler because he's white, because Tony Ferguson did dive into the racial shit. And I got to be honest with you, man, that is just bullshit, especially when it comes to the UFC. It just doesn't make any sense. You can't say, look, you can say a lot, again, say a lot of things about Dana White. You can say a lot of things about the UFC, but the UFC is the most multicultural sports organization in the world. So you can't come at me and say, oh, Dana White's a racist and he prefers white guys. Are you kidding me, man? Get out of here with that shit, because no one's buying it, what you're trying to sell. All right. No one's buying it. All right. Michael Chandler's a good fighter. He really is. He's a solid fighter. Now, let's talk about the fight. Now that we got all the pre-garbage out of the way, I honestly thought that this on paper was a really good fight, because Ferguson's style is kind of crazy. It's kind of wild. He's a weird cat, right? And sometimes his fighting style reflects that weirdness. And Chandler is just kind of a no-nonsense guy, good takedowns, likes a good fight. And in all honesty, I kind of saw this happening where Ferguson was kind of taking the lead and kind of owning the fight. And then Chandler looked desperate. He kind of looked desperate at first, right? Like he was getting frustrated and he was just trying to throw wild shots and trying to catch something. But then Chandler got a good takedown at the end of the first. And Ferguson looked great on the ground. Like, in all honesty, he was really, really working well on his back on the ground and keeping Chandler from really getting any big advantage there as he was on top. But Chandler did catch a couple big shots. So I gave the first round to Chandler because of the takedown. I thought that was enough to give Chandler the first round. But then round two starts. And here we go. Moment of the night. Well, one of two moments of the night. Okay. Michael Chandler catches Tony Ferguson with a front kick, and Ferguson dropped like a sack of potatoes. This kick was one of the most brutal knockouts I think I've ever seen in the UFC. Honestly, go find the clip. And I don't know. Let me see if they've got it. They got the interview. They don't have the clip of the fight. And for copyright reasons, and I don't want to get taken down, I won't show it, but I will tell you to seek it out. Seek out the very end of this fight. Go check out the clip. Go check out the clip of this front kick, because this kick was beautiful, right on Tony Ferguson's face. Ferguson didn't block it at all. It landed about as clean as you could possibly land a front kick, and Ferguson just drops. I thought he killed the man. I thought he killed him. When they showed the replay of that kick landing, I thought he killed him. Seriously. It was a beautiful front kick. It was beautiful. So Ferguson's out. And I agree. I see the comment there, LBZ. Tony Ferguson did not help himself at all with the verbal. And I totally agree, man. Totally agree. Because look, in all honesty, Tony Ferguson's a great fighter, but don't bring that shit into it, man. You honestly, like, nobody's buying it, nobody's buying it. And again, don't dismiss Michael Chandler, obviously, because you see what happens when you do. Now, I don't know if Chandler would have won that fight had he not hit that kick, but he did. And it was a beautiful kick. And then my man, Michael Chandler, after the fight, my man gets on that mic and cuts the most beautiful promo you have ever heard. I always see these fighters after the fight, and they waste this opportunity. They just go, oh, I don't care, man. Just give me whoever, blah, 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 blah. But not Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler got on that mic, and it was like Hulk Hogan in the 80s, cutting one of those promos. Listen here, brother. I'm the best. I want, Macho Man Randy Savage. Give me Savage. I'm going to take my vitamins and say my prayers, and I'm going to drop the leg at WrestleMania. That's what it was like. And he called out whoever wins the championship to fight that night, tonight. And then he said, if I don't get the champion, then I want McGregor's ass. Give me Conor McGregor. And he was calling him out. It was a beautiful promo by Michael Chandler. That was almost my moment of the night, because you get these boring promos after fights, and Chandler, oh man, he won me over with that promo. That was beautiful. You know what I mean? That got me, I got like pumped after hearing Michael Chandler give that promo. So you hit a beautiful kick like that. You knock Ferguson right on his ass. You knock him out. He's gone. And then you cut the promo of the night. So Michael Chandler's a badass. And I kind of actually hope I hope McGregor does kind of fight Chandler, because I see some magic there, right? You got McGregor playing the heel. Chandler could be the baby face. They could go at it. That's beautiful, man. You got good pro wrestling shit right there. And I'm into that. So good for that. All right. Well, I do want to say this before we get to the Carla Esparza fight, Namajunas fight. There was a beautiful moment where DC, they announced that he was going to be put into the Hall of Fame, and he didn't know it was coming. And so you got this emotional reaction from Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier is one of the best of all time. This is a no-brainer move from the UFC. The dude is a great double champ at one point in time. The feud between John Jones and DC created a lot of business and buzz for MMA. It really, honestly, it helped the sport move forward because of that feud, because there was so much heat and energy in that feud. You really wanted to see these two fight. DC is an incredible performer. He's a great commentator too. And he's honestly one of my favorite fighters of all time, if not my favorite fighter of all time. So very emotional moment. He was very emotional. It was kind of a beautiful moment. So that, because you had these two boring fights and you had some good action, that DC announcement was almost the moment of the night. It really was, especially if you're a DC fan or a fan of the sport in general. Where did I just go? Google Chrome? No, we don't do that. We don't need Chrome help. Trust me. All right, here we go. We got to talk about it. Gosh, man. This fight was such a disappointment. All right. Strawweight title is on the line. Rose Namajunas and Carla Esparza. Now, this is a rematch. And if you watch The Ultimate Fighter that season, I think it was like 8 years ago. It was like 7 or 8 years ago when the two first fought. And it was the inaugural strawweight title fight from The Ultimate Fighter season. And Esparza ended up winning because Namajunas kind of rushed in, and Esparza was able to take advantage of her wrestling. And she won the title. She was the first ever strawweight champion. Fast forward to today, you got Rose Namajunas, who is one of the best female fighters. I don't know how you can't say that she's one of the best female fighters of all time. I mean, she smoked Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She didn't embarrass Joanna, but in all honesty, like back when Rose fought Joanna, I thought Joanna was one of the best female fighters of all time. And the way Rose beat her, it was like, damn, we got to start taking Rose Namajunas seriously. And she's been a very serious champion ever since then. Her style is very entertaining. Usually when she fights, she's a great striker. You like watching her. And she's just someone who you can really get behind too. Her personality. So going into this fight, I was really excited about the opportunity for the rematch here. Carla Esparza has been asking for this title shot for so long. There's a lot of people who think that Carla deserved it. Rose Namajunas being one of them. I mean, she basically asked for Carla Esparza. And, the storyline was there because of the rematch. So everything kind of leading up to this fight would lead you to believe this was going to be a good fight, maybe even fight of the night, right? A hungry challenger, a great champion with two different styles usually leads to a pretty good fight. But this might be the most disappointing title fight in UFC history. Simply because there was just so the fight starts and there's this long feeling out process, okay, between the two of them. So my thought is, all right, Rose is going to stay back and she's going to try to frustrate Carla. And I'm going through this thought exercise with you guys because this is what I think was going through her head. Rose thinks, I'm going to stay back. I'm going to frustrate Carla. Eventually, Carla's gonna start trying to close the gap and come in from the takedown. I'll stop the takedown, and then I'll strike from that. Like I'll stop the takedown and then use that to throw strikes and get the advantage. But somewhere along the line, it seems like maybe Rose just thought she was super far ahead. I don't know why she would think that, but that's the only thing in my head that I can. That's how I make sense of this, because I honestly was baffled at the end of this fight by Rose Namajunas' performance. For Carla, after she started landing takedowns, it really was kind of academic for her to just stay back, especially with Rose playing that game. I mean, I assume Carla knew she was ahead. I'm again, what a tough fight to even score. But I'm assuming that Carla thought, okay, I'm ahead. I'm gonna stay back and I'm not gonna push, I'm not gonna close the gap. It's almost like Rose was waiting for Carla to lose her cool and then start rushing in. And Carla was waiting for Rose to get frustrated. So you had this boring ass fight where the two of them are just dancing. Barely anything is going on. The crowd is booing like crazy, both of them. The commentators are shitting on them. And I'm left at the end of the day going, what in the I just couldn't understand from Rose Namajunas' perspective how she thought she was up, how her corner thought she was up, which we should talk about. And I'm just baffled by how these two put on such a bad performance. I'm baffled. Like I've been trying since that fight ended to think of like what in the hell was going through Rose Namajunas' head, because Rose Namajunas is a proud champion. You know that she loves being the champion. And so for her to just kind of like you don't want to say give up, but in all honesty, she did nothing. How do you think you're going to win that fight doing nothing? Now, part of it is her corner, which was, I'm not going to knock her coaches because I do think she has great coaches. But I'm going to say they did her a huge injustice by telling her in her corner, this is great. Keep this up. You're doing great. Keep this up. You're scaring her. Your uppercuts. I think at one point they were talking about how Carla was afraid of the uppercut, or her uppercut was like rocking Carla or something like that. And anybody who's watching the fight is thinking, no, what are you doing? Why are you telling her this? But her corner, particularly Pat Barry, is just feeding her this information about like, oh yeah, you're doing great. This is the game plan. Keep this up. Keep at it. Keep going. Keep doing this. You're gonna wear her out. You're gonna. And I'm just thinking, what advice are you giving her, dude? Tell her to start doing something. Throw punches. Do something. Just standing there moving around isn't going to win you a title fight. Especially, and this is where it really blows my mind. You're fighting someone who is a wrestler, okay? Who at any moment can take you down. And your advice is just do nothing? Stay back? Well, you're opening the door then. I think even Rogan said this. You're opening the door for Esparza to just land a takedown and get the fight, because that's all she needed to do. Why would you give that opportunity to Carla Esparza? Why would you give a wrestler the opportunity to win the fight on one takedown? I'm baffled by this. I don't understand. And I don't know if is it just Pat Barry didn't want to damage her confidence? Is that what this was? But this was bad corner work. And you could tell there was some like confusion, because her other coach, whose name I it just escapes me right now, was kind of like indicating to her like, hey, you need to press a little bit. We need to get a little more out of you. But I'm left in awe. So Carlos Esparza wins the fight. It goes the distance. It was a split decision. And Carla Esparza ends up winning the fight, becomes the champion. Rose Namajunas is probably going to go home and watch this fight and be incredibly disappointed in her performance. And what's even more disappointing is that I don't think we're going to get a rematch. In all honesty, if you're Dana White, would you book this rematch? I mean, after such a poor performance. And that's so sad because Rose Namajunas is a great champion. She just made a terrible mistake tonight, and her coaches didn't help her. And I know she's going to go back and she's going to look at this tape. She's going to be super disappointed. So even though this was such a bad fight, and I really do hope that Dana books the rematch. I really do, because I think fight 2 is going to be different. I don't think Rose Namajunas is going to come in to, I guess it would be fight 3 at this point. Carla Esparza is 2-0 against Rose Namajunas, by the way. I don't think that Rose is going to come into the next fight with the same, strategy and game plan that she came into this one. She's going to know that she needs action. And I do hope that this fight doesn't damage her reputation, because she really is a great fighter who has put on a lot of great moments, who's responsible for a lot of great moments in MMA. But this fight was dog shit. This fight was the worst fight of the night, because even though the OSP Hua fight was bad, you almost expected that fight to be bad. I either expected that fight to be a knockout in the first round, or just bad. And this fight I did not expect to be bad at all. And it was just terrible. Just really bad. Carla's the champ. I don't know who she'll face next. And congrats to her, in all honesty. Not going to take anything away from her, but that was maybe the easiest title fight she's ever won. The easiest title fight anybody would have ever won, right? I mean, my goodness. Can you imagine this? Just think about this for a second. Carla Esparza is getting married next week, or in 10 days, or whatever they said. And she's fine. Like that 5-round fight, and she's fine. She'll just need a little makeup. That's pretty crazy to think about, right? Like you would think after a 5-round fight with Rose Namajunas, you're going to have some cuts and some bruises. But all she's going to need on her wedding day is makeup. Like, what the hell? It's crazy. It's baffling. Like, please comment in the comment section and tell me what Rose Namajunas' game plan was. Because I'm still at a loss. Like, I'm still in my mind, like, just trying to think through this. It's just baffling. Finally, we get to the main event. Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, and Gaethje's kind of a wild card, so I didn't know what to expect out of this fight. And then with all the drama around Oliveira and the title getting stripped from him because he didn't make weight, this was a tough fight to anticipate. You just didn't know what you were going to get, right? And it was an exciting fight while it lasted, and it did not last very long. So obviously this isn't updated. I wonder if I hit enter if I can update it. But Oliveira, he caught a right early that wobbled Gaethje. So he caught a right super early. Oh, I love this UFC. Thanks for this. He caught a right super early. It wobbled Gaethje, but then Gaethje was able to return. He caught this hook on Oliveira and it knocked Oliveira down. It was like a delayed knockdown too. And then Oliveira was cut and he was bleeding. He tried to invite Gaethje to get on top of him, but Gaethje wasn't having any of that smartly and wanted him to stand up. But then Oliveira hits this cross and just stuns Gaethje. Gaethje goes down. Oliveira is able to get on him. He locks a choke in. He went for a triangle, and then Gaethje was able to get out of that. But then Oliveira locked a choke, wins via submission. And it's just unfortunate that he missed weight. He's going to lose the title because of this. It was an incredible performance. Gaethje is a true contender, so to be able to beat him that way, I mean, Gaethje sometimes underperforms or has a bit of he doesn't have a glass jaw. That's not the right way to say it, but he can certainly get knocked out. But man, Oliveira wins this, and it was an impressive rear naked choke to really end the fight. And Oliveira also mentioned Conor McGregor and called him out. So I'm not sure I'm not sure what the direction is there or who's next. I think you gotta say that Michael Chandler he's in the running, right? I mean, after that win against Tony Ferguson, like he's in the running to be the next contender. Um, but I'm not sure what direction they'll go. You know, McGregor's always the wild card. Like, I don't think McGregor should get a title fight. I really don't. And I like Conor McGregor's charisma and how entertaining he is, and he always builds a story for a fight, right? But I just, how can you give McGregor the title shot at this point? Um, I'm just not sure how you can. So maybe Chandler after that performance against Ferguson. I don't know, but that was a very impressive win with unfortunate circumstances, because now that the title's vacant and Oliveira is going to have to fight again to get the title. And I'm not diminishing the importance of making your weight cut, because it is very unfair to your competitor who does go through the weight cut, can make the weight cut, and is ready for the fight. It's very unfair if you don't make weight. It's hard. It's a controversial thing because these fighters do a lot of bad stuff to themselves sometimes. I mean, let's be honest, to make the weight. But it's a necessary evil, sort of, because you want the fight to be fair. So I don't know what to say about it. It's like, you know, when you're the champion, you should have the discipline and you should really, you know, be a little hard on yourself to make the weight, because you know how important it is. So I sort of understand why the title was stripped, but at the same time, this dude is just so good. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate to see such a good performance like this. And it's just, you know, it has this shadow cast over it because Oliveira got the title stripped. So that ends the night. And in all honesty, in terms of the pay-per-view as a whole, I don't know, man. You know, just as an overall like commentary on the fact that these pay-per-views are $75 now in the United States, $74.99, and that is on top of the subscription to ESPN Plus. So if you don't have an ESPN Plus subscription, you have to pay, what is it, $5.99? I have like the yearly. I think I got it for free because I'm like a Verizon customer or whatever. But you have to pay the $5.99 for that on top of the $75 you're paying for a pay-per-view. And you know, when you look at the card tonight, it was definitely a card where you're thinking this is worth the $75. Like this card on paper is absolutely worth the $75. But the action that we got in the octagon, those two bad fights, the Hua OSP fight and the Esparza Namajunas fight, they really dragged this card to the ground. And then the two fights that were exciting were both pretty early stoppages. So you had two really early stoppages, a decent first fight, and then two awful, terrible duds, in my opinion. So it was tonight worth the $75? Absolutely not. I would say it was not. And I actually think $75 in and of itself is a bit of highway robbery for a pay-per-view. Now, again, I'm someone who used to pay $30 for WWF and WCW pay-per-views. So when I see $75, it does make me throw up in my mouth a little bit. But if you give me a good enough card, if I'm entertained enough during the night, I can justify the spending of $75. But tonight, I just absolutely was disappointed with the pay-per-view. So next week, in terms of the UFC, you're getting a fight night. And I think we will have coverage for that fight night. I think we are going to do a post show for that as well. And then again, it is so late here. We're going to cut the stream short. But I'm excited for WrestleMania Backlash tomorrow. We're going to be doing a live post show for that. So come back for that if that interests you. And then on Monday, we're going to circle back around and do Impact Wrestling's Under Siege, which I actually heard there were some surprises tonight in the world of Impact Wrestling. So I'm a little excited actually to watch that show, see what Impact's got for me. Maybe that was the better choice tonight. I don't know. But yeah, so please just comment in the comment section below what you thought of tonight's show. What do you think about Oliveira? Do you think it's fair what happened to him? And also, what was Rose Namajunas' game plan going into that fight? Are we going to see a rematch? Go ahead and comment. If you like this, please go ahead and like, share, subscribe, do all the things. I really do appreciate you tuning in live if you did, and I appreciate you watching this on replay if you didn't, because it's 1:50 in the morning here in the Eastern time zone, and it is time for bed. So I think we're going to cut it out after that. But thank you guys for watching. And I will see you on the next one. Peace, everybody.